right, welcome to another edition of the Plus One segment. And today she's back with us. Kelsey is in the building. Well, not in the building, but y'all know what I'm talking. Y'all know what I'm saying. She's here. We're continuing our segment of recapping The Last Dance, episodes 7 and 8. Kelsey, how are you?
I'm doing good. I wish I was in the building, right? But COVID-19 decided to have other plans for us. But doing as well as you can be in quarantine.
Yeah, right now it looks like you're like locked up right now with the plain walls and stuff.
I know. This is the only plain wall in my place, so I have to do everything from here so you all don't see all of my junk. Because I live in the city, so look, we don't have much space in our little tiny apartment.
As you can see, the kitchen is is the office now for me. So this is.
It means you're eating good. It makes me happy.
You can say that. You can say that. All right, The Last Dance. We watched episodes 7 and 8, and that episode was pretty emotional. Those episodes were pretty emotional, but the start of episode 7 was hilarious because you have they just finished the 3-peat, and then Jerry Krause is doing the press conference, and the late great Craig Sager asks him a question that he wasn't too fond of, and the funniest part was "Way to go, Craig," from one of the reporters, which was pretty hilarious. But that was what a way to start that episode off.
Oh, I loved it. Like you said, I mean, starting with that question. And when you call somebody a backstabber, let's be honest, like you're calling for something back, right? It's like, I didn't call for you, but you're calling for me. Don't come for me unless I come for you. That's what Craig did in that moment. And you could feel after that, Jerry was heated. So the rest of the reporters didn't even get a press conference.
I know.
So it was great.
Hey, you can't blame him for the question because of everything people heard what was going on. You got the Jordan rules and that had came out. So I mean, it was a fair question the way he's. I mean, would I have said it?
Put the monkey on your back, though. We would have, right? Because we want to be invited back to that press conference room.
but Craig, he was seasoned, so he
can do it.
Yeah, he could get away with that. But that was the funniest part. And then the other funny part was when he walked off. I just looked at him like he has that.
He was so mad.
Yeah,
the little man syndrome.
Yeah, it was so on display.
You just wanted to hug him in that moment. I mean, he was just ready to pop off. So I think he knew to walk out, because after that, it doesn't matter if you ask the nicest question, like, how was your day? He would be pissed. So he knew to just exit stage left.
And plus, any other questions that were going to follow up were probably going to be follow-ups to Craig's question. So he knew the story was coming.
Like, expand more. Yeah, he didn't want to do it. He didn't want to do it.
So then they transitioned to Jordan, the retirement, because we found out that he's been contemplating retirement after the 92 season.
Right.
And if it wasn't for the Dream Team, he probably would have retired after that season, but he came back so he could do a 3-peat because Magic and Bird had never done it, and then the Olympics as well. So, and then we go into the whole baseball thing, which was very interesting because he hadn't played for 17 years this year or 14 years
for a while, right? Like from the time you're like growing in adolescence and playing to now you're trying to play on the professional level with the best of the best. It was crazy.
And So, there's a stigma with baseball writers that they don't like fun or they don't like new things. And baseball in general don't like new things. So we saw it firsthand because heck, he's not in the majors, but he's one of the minor leagues. Having Michael Jordan on on a minor league team is just going to boost people's interest for baseball. And
for sure,
baseball writers didn't like it at all. Sports Illustrated didn't like it. It was crazy.
Right, because you bring this new media frenzy. Like, I've covered minor leagues here in the area. Minor league games are pretty empty, right? Like, most people can't name a minor league player, yet alone to have a superstar, someone that's at the top of his game come. And then all of a sudden, that media room that you got real comfy in, where each of you guys were in separate seats, now there's a million people and you're squished to just get an interview question. So, I think it's a stigma that baseball kind of likes things more the same, right? That's kind of why some that complain about the sport being too slow. Well, guess what? That's the way it's been for a long time. Right. So it's just like they weren't ready for that newness that Jordan brought. But I mean, you have to respect him for like being able to follow something that to honor his father's memory and, to just really try to own that, change his body, change his muscle mass to play the sport at the best level. Like that told you the type of competitor that MJ was.
And it also, the baseball part also canceled or dismissed a whole lot of theories or a whole lot of false rumors that are out there that he was horrible at baseball, that he wasn't good, that he failed at baseball. Because growing up, that's all we heard. Whenever they talk about Michael Jordan and playing baseball, they said it was a failure for him. And then they gave us the numbers. They have his manager saying it's kind of crazy for a guy who hasn't played that long to do what he did.
Do what he did, yeah.
So that,
like you said, for us 20-somethings, they always say like it was a mistake or something, right? Yeah. Like that's what, like you said, that's what we were hearing. But to go back in time and to be shown this, you see, like, no. I mean, yes, I think when his first game, he kind of had to shake off the rust, as we would all have to do. I mean, I challenge anybody to do something you haven't done in a long time. Right. You can't tell me you're not going to be a little rusty when the first start. But then he was Jordan, the Jordan of that game.
Yeah, and then what he started, he's had a 13-game hitting streak when his first few games, then slumped, and then he just had 202, which is pretty. I mean, I'm not a baseball person, but all the baseball people said that's pretty impressive for someone someone who hasn't played in a while and drove in 50 runs. And I think he would have stayed if hadn't be the lockout. That was the only reason.
And then think about that. That's the only reasons we might have got MJ back to basketball. And just, I mean, it's crazy, like you said, when you think about it, but that lockout really changed the course of history, especially for Michael Jordan. So it's crazy to think about it.
Yeah, because I think the manager, Terry Francona, he said if there wasn't a lockout, Jordan probably had a good and he continued improving the way he was improving.
To move up.
There was a high chance that he could get moved up to the major leagues at some point.
Majors, yep.
Yeah,
yep.
So baseball really missed out. And then Sports Illustrated. See, I didn't know that. That was another thing I just learned about him and his beef with Sports Illustrated. I didn't know it came from what they wrote. The stuff they wrote without even interviewing him. And I think, what did somebody say? That was a lot of journalistic errors or journalistic flaws that were displayed during that time. Because it don't make sense for you to write something about someone and you never even interviewed them or got no quotes from them.
Right. It's not fair. Like, we wouldn't even want that. You wouldn't want anybody to say anything about you without asking your side of the story, right? Because there's always two sides of the story and the truth. And our job as journalists is supposed to be to get that truth. So you saw a lot of journalistic things that when you look back, you're like, wait. Do you guys not remember our ethic principles? Like, do you not remember being objective? And our duties and our jobs as journalists. And it seemed like back then, though, it was more about, just being the first one to get it out about MJ. And unfortunately, we do live in this world where bad storylines sell. And so making him look bad in this evil light, you could tell, was a priority for some, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I mean, you see the state of Sports Illustrated now. It's does it even exist anymore? Because I know they laid off a whole
They had the layoffs. Yeah,
they had so many layoffs, and there's been questions of them even being around in the future. So it's kind of sad, but that if they had Jordan on their side, it'd be a lot different. And also we got to look at his father's passing, and one thing, it was like he was missing for 3 weeks. Which the first time I heard this story, I thought it was just, they found his dad dead. Maybe it was like a 1 or 2 day thing. I didn't know the depth of the story of him him driving, falling asleep, and pulling over, falling asleep in the parking lot, and it just.
See, I had known that story, but I think to watch that back and to watch it in real time with the rest of the world, and just see his pure raw emotion, and then to see the hurt that he felt after people were saying that he was tied to his father's death. Yeah. Like, nobody in their right mind would want anybody to say something like that about him, especially with the bond they had. And I think we all think about, our fathers. Like, Father's Day is right around the corner, right? And when you saw that, I don't know, your heart went out to him. Because I think for a while in the series, like, MJ is kind of seen as this mean guy and this kind of tough dude and this villain. But I think that kind of personalized and say, well, what? He's just like us. He was hurt. He was hurt and still had to go perform and still had to play at the top level and had questions about, you know, his father's death. And for his father to die in that way, like, it was hurtful. Like, I think all of us kind of got emotional for MJ because no one should have to go through that. And of course, no one wants to bury or have to bury a parent. And I think especially for me, like, seeing that it might have been avoidable, you know, like I think you asked questions like, you know, why was he driving alone? Or, you know, why did he pull over on the road to sleep? Like, no, you don't do that. And especially, I've lived in North Carolina. In certain parts of North Carolina, especially, you definitely don't do that. And I think, you know, there's so many questions just running through my mind. And, you know, it's just sad. And I think still to this day, it's like, you remember those moments. I think MJ's dad means to him what, like, a Kanye's mom meant to him. Like, you see how Kanye kind of changed after the loss of his mother, something I think that was also preventable. I think we kind of saw that with MJ, and just nothing was ever the same. Yeah,
and throughout his years during his run, all the time, if you see post game, you would see his dad. He'd bring his dad. He'd always have his dad around.
Yeah, and his best friend.
Right, and I think the troubling issue was he's already in an emotional state, and then if he reads the newspaper and people are saying his gambling is a gambling debt was the reason his father got killed, and when all that rumor about him and his gambling debt was already dismissed, like, he paid his gambling debts or whatever he owed to anyone. So for folks to just do that was that's some fireable stuff. That is fireable stuff.
It's hurtful. Yeah. It's hurtful. Like you said, like, I mean, we all have things maybe that we're not the most proud of, right? But I'll be honest, MJ, even if he did gamble, he had the money to gamble. Like, a lot of us criticizing him for this, we don't have enough pennies to gamble the way he did. Not saying that was right, but then again, to tie something like that without factual evidence, and you're in your lowest point, it's kind of like someone kicking you when you're down, right? Yeah. And that's what happened to MJ. But the difference is that the world got to see him being kicked while he was down. Yeah. And it's just hard. And it hurt, and he let us in.
And then with that, he announced his retirement, and then there was the other rumor. There was so many conspiracy theories that were dismissed from this. There was the rumor that he's retiring because of his gambling and David Stern kind of secretly suspending him. And I think someone said it best. Why would David Stern want to exile the cash cow? Why would he want
to do that? Your money, your player, right? That'd be like LeBron now, right? Like, LeBron would have to do something like horrible to ever be on Adam Silver's bad side. There's no way David Stern was doing that to MJ, who you see in the documentary, the crowds that he brought to games, all the people that idolized him, the championships. Why would you mess that up?
Right, the TV ratings, all the marketing. I mean, and David Stern, rest in peace to him. He was a Jewish man, and from what I've known and what from people have told me about Jewish folks, they don't play with money. They're not gonna mess
that's why they're in power a lot, right? Like, they know what to do with their money. So like, no, come on, that storyline should have never been out there, but it was.
Yeah, it was. So then there was so much going on this, and we got to see Jordan. So we got a first glance look that Jordan read all those criticism of him as a leader. He heard what they were saying, and it took and he took offense to it, and you can see it in that moment when he kind of broke down, and they had to go to break, and he's talking about the way he led and how he prepared, and a lot of criticism to it. I think he really took offense to the criticism.
Yeah, as he should have. Like I said, as he should have. Because, again, I think when you are the best at something, for somebody to criticize it, you take that personal, right? And then especially when you feel like it's unwarranted, I think, and that's what we saw. And MJ, I mean, he plays with his emotions. I think the best players do. No great player can tell me they don't wear their emotions on their sleeve. Like, that's what makes their game so good. I think about it. Your most talented basketball players, if you played a sport but you didn't really have emotion into it, I would bet that you probably were not the best at that sport. When you put your all into it and you're living it and breathing it, for someone to come and try to take that from you or say something negative about you, you take it hard. And that's what he did. And again, I think this doc lets us into an MJ that we're not used to seeing. Mm-hmm. Because again, like among the times when you see these clips and things, like we knew MJ was great, like, but we didn't really get to know MJ. Like, I don't know how many people could actually say before this doc, of course, unless they were writing about him at that time or there at that time, or his teammates could really say, like, I knew MJ, right? Like, not many people could say that. But now we feel like, well, I kind of do know MJ. Like, I saw this, I saw that. And now it makes sense why he did what he did to get the greatness level that he achieved.
A lot of people took offense to his style of leadership, the tactics he used, some people would call it bullying, what he was doing. And my experiences, everybody leads differently. I mean, there's at least one or two person on every basketball team in each level that acts just like Michael Jordan. That no matter what level, there's at least one or two. But to the extent that he did it, like, you know, him trying to get Steve Burrell to fight him. He tried to get him to fight him in practice just to see if he had that tough guy punching Steve Kerr in the face. And
that was crazy.
Yeah, so I think the more issues was this comes across as bullying. You're bullying your teammates. But he did say something important. He said, I would not ask those guys to do something that I wouldn't do myself, or I wouldn't ask them to do more than they could. So the things that he expected out of his teammates, he also expected from himself. So
from himself, right?
So it wasn't just on you. So it wasn't just
and
like
that's what you want.
Yeah, so it was. I can understand why some people would have an issue with it, but you just gotta know every leader.
Everybody has a different leadership style, right? Like we've all had different bosses in our lives. Some have resonated better with you. If you have a sibling, right? Some show you tough love. That doesn't go well with everybody. But if you think about it, like a lot of times that makes people who they are. MJ shared that with us earlier, you know, how growing up with him, and he even said it, like his brother, you know, just a talent that he had that made him play to a higher level. Christian Laettner, same thing, same storyline. His brother showed him that tough love, and that's kind of what made Christian Laettner. And like you said, MJ's style is not for everybody. And as you saw in the doc, Steve Kerr had to stand up for himself. And it made MJ respect him, though.
He was the only one.
You might not think that, right? And you wouldn't even, when you see Steve Kerr now, you would not guess. If you had to guess before you knew that, you would not guess that he would have been the one to stand up to MJ like that, right? But you saw it did, and MJ gained respect for him. And not everybody's able to handle that. Like we've all played sports. I wasn't that person on a sports team that's going to bully you to make you better. I'll push you to make you better, but I also think it's up to you to make you better. But I've had teammates like that, and I was able to handle that. But not everybody is, right? And that's why, I mean, you have a relationship with your teammates, but that's why at the end of the day, like maybe now, and I think you always see, but you might not be quote unquote friends with all of them because again, that's not everyone's cup of tea.
Yeah. I was glad that Steve Kerr was actually the only one. He actually stood up for himself because all the other guys, I'll say this, Jordan was a habitual line crosser. He habitually stepped over that line.
He tested you.
He went there. And at some point, I don't care if you're the greatest of all time, you're the best player on the team, but at some point you actually need to defend yourself. If you have to fight him, you have to fight him, but you got to defend yourself some way. You can't just sit there and take it all the time because he won't stop. And you saw with some of the guys, he just wouldn't stop. Right.
And like you said, it's like when he's pushing them and pushing them and pushing them and pushing them. Not everybody could handle that, but as you said, some people like, look, he did it, and I was able to handle it. Obviously, somebody like a Scottie Pippen was able to handle it, to play with him as long as he played. But also, I think it's Scottie's personality trait. But you see, some people when they left him, like I feel like Horace Grant was happier in terms of like just not having to deal with that after he left that Bulls team. You know, it was different. He got to be the big guy, where he didn't have the big guy MJ picking on him.
Yeah. So. But I'm just, I probably would have fought you. I probably would have fought him if I was one of his teammates and he was doing that to me. Especially you calling him some of the stuff I can't stay here. Actually, I can't. You calling your teammate a
that was disrespectful.
Like,
come on, like that's disrespectful.
You can't sit there.
You can't do that.
No, that's there's certain words that are fighting words, and when you call another grown man or you got to fight. At that point, you just have to fight or throw something. You got to throw a chair at him or do something. You got to. No, we can't have this. That's
true. Like that's disrespectful. I feel like calling somebody a quote unquote is like someone talking about your mama. Like that's the level that I see it at, and I feel like that's when you get defensive and you have to show MJ. Like you can't do that.
Yeah, seriously, come on, you can't be. And what he say to Steve Urkel? Oh, he said, what he said? He said, "Oh, where are your mouth at now?" Like, well.
That was crazy.
In practice,
that was crazy.
We got to fight.
In front of your teammates. In front of your teammates.
In front of teammates, coaches. We have to fight. At that point, we have to fight. But, yeah, he was a habitual line stepper. But
at the same time, I feel like they all look back now and are like, I think they get why he did it. Not saying that they all fully agree, but they get it. And then you have to think if he wasn't that way, would they still have the same amount of greatness and success that they had? Because sometimes when there's somebody pushing you, it's kind of like, when you have that glow up, if you had a bully in school, you look back now and like, look at me now. And if you didn't have that bully, maybe you wouldn't have been as pushed to succeed, or to prove something. And I feel like that's kind of what MJ was.
Yeah. It was hilarious. But, yeah.
But don't call anybody else. Don't do it.
No.
Unless you want that smoke.
Seriously.
Don't do it.
So then we saw his comeback. He comes back in the middle of March of the 95 season, 94-95, came back in 95. And, they were struggling. 34 and 31. They needed a new boost of energy, and they got it from him. And then proceeding to the play. He didn't have a great game. His first game back against Indiana, I think he was like 7 for 29. Yep. And then he came back. He came back and had a good stretch, and then concluded that with a 55-point game against the Knicks. I feel like the Knicks have been catching stray bullets this entire day.
Oh, the Knicks! It's hard. That's why I tweeted. I said, check on your New York Knicks on your New York Knicks friends, because look. It's been hard for them. We know what they've went through, but to have to relive this, come on. Ouch.
Just like bringing misery back. It's literally man. Jordan ruined all their chances of getting the championship. He ruined it.
Literally, watching the Knicks back, it's kind of like having to rewatch an old breakup that you've had again and again and again and again. It's thrown back in your face. You're like, enough is enough. So I'm telling you, Knicks fans, we understand that you're not watching it with us right now because you might need some time. You might have to DVR it, go back and watch, pause it so you can get your tissues and stuff. I get it. I'm glad I'm not a Knicks fan because I don't know if I could do it.
I couldn't do it.
It's not for everybody.
I'd have a drinking problem if I was a Knicks fan.
They probably all do right now watching this doc. Liquor stores are probably making good sales, especially anywhere where there's Knicks fans.
You are right. So they got into the playoffs, and then they played the Orlando Magic. This is probably the Magic were next. This team was young. They had every position filled. They had a star at point guard. They had the biggest, baddest man at center, a young Shaquille O'Neal, and surrounded them with great talent. And this was the first time since probably the Pistons series that we saw Michael Jordan not rise to the occasion. We see him in game one turning the ball over. Then we see him airballing in another game. And it was funny, too. They were up, too.
It was crazy.
Up in each of those games down the stretch. And for him to fail and, for Horace Grant to be able to eliminate his ex-team,
yes.
It was something.
It was epic. You couldn't write a better story. And like I said, I wish you could be in Horace's head. I feel like everybody wants to hear from Horace now. I haven't seen him on many interviews, but we all want to know, Horace, come on, take us back to that moment. What was that like? And then you talked about the players he was playing against, and you heard the success against MJ. Players found out, okay, MJ's obviously great, but to beat a great player, everybody has a weakness. Everybody, has something that can get to them. And they saw it was being physical.
Yeah.
Once they got physical with him, they saw they could kind of change his game.
And and he used that, and then we fast forward. He said that he was not in the best basketball shape. He would, all those the Magic were clearly in superior shape than he was, and his teammates were in a lot better shape than he was. He talked about that, and then so he's filming Space Jam, and then he wants to get back into basketball shape because he was still kind of in baseball shape, and so he holds this pickup games after his Space Jam shoots in Hollywood, and this is like the mind tricks, mind games, whatever, because he's bringing in all these guys that he's going to be playing against or he's going to see in the postseason, and in that pickup game, he's studying them and figuring out what they do well, and it served him for the best.
Right, exactly. And it's like, but just rewatching that, and like you said, those pickup games, and going back to who knew when you watched the movie Space Jam that all of that was occurring behind the scenes. None of us knew that. But to know that and to be a player, to be able to watch that was just, it was incredible. And it showed that the lengths that he would go through, to make his teammates and himself better.
And the Magic, one thing we've learned about this, Jordan is a sociopath. He is a sociopath.
Just say it in a nice way.
Yeah, the man's a sociopath. Someone on Twitter said we're just all lucky that he used his psychotic nature and focused it on basketball and nothing else. So they come back that next season and they win 72 games. And it was just, he sees the Magic again. And I remember watching, remember that 30 for 30 they did on that Magic team?
Yes.
Yeah. So one thing that popped in my head was when they faced them again the following year, Horace Grant said he saw Jordan before the game and he said he had that look in his eye. And he was just like, we just knew. When I saw that, I knew we didn't have a chance. And they ended up getting swept. And after that Magic team was never the same. They got broken up after that.
Yeah, and even when you think about the Magic today, it's crazy. But like you said, and it's true. When somebody has like a look in their eye, right? And I'll take you back to your childhood. It's like when you did something, you got in trouble, and your parent had that look in your eye. They ever had to come get you from school, and you're like, "Oh man, please don't let me go home," because you knew what was about to happen. I feel like that's the look that MJ had in his eye. And as he said, Horace, he just knew like something was about to go down.
Because that playoff run, they were on a roll that playoff run. They beat the Magic. Then, of course, they beat the Heat again. I mean, not the Heat. They beat the Knicks again. Then they beat the Heat. Poor Knicks. So we thought we were going to get a great matchup between them and Seattle. But we got another great gif and meme from Jordan from that.
Jordan is the meme that keeps on giving. Like literally, he's the meme that keeps on giving. When is he not a meme?
Right. So we get to the Seattle series. The Sonics, that was a great team. 64 wins. Gary Payton, all defensive team.
Oh, Gary, Kemp. Yes.
I mean, they had a good team. And before that, we said George Karl didn't greet him at a restaurant, so he remembered that, and it was just like, oh my God, this guy here. What is wrong?
Literally, like the stuff that was going on, you're in your head like, come on. And then to know like some of it was just like in the head to make you better. You're like, wait, like you're making this, fictitious beef.
Right? It's
so crazy.
Yeah. But one thing we learned, what Gary Payton said, that he wished they had put him on like the entire series. I mean, it hurt because Gary Payton was all defensive team, defensive player of the year, so it would not have hurt.
The man could ball. People forget that about him, but he could ball. And like you said, I mean, defensively, he would bring it to you, and he wasn't afraid to bring it to you.
Yeah, he'd make people work. So I don't know who, Nate McMillan, Hersey Hawkins, and Detlef Schrempf and all those guys. I mean, they're not really known as great lockdown defenders, but you see that that Bulls team was so focused. They go up 3-0 on them, they drop 2, and then they close it out at home, and then we get that iconic moment of Jordan on the ground in the locker room crying, and that was a great moment right there.
it was one that you wish you were there. Like as a media member, it's one, if you miss that moment, you're mad at yourself because all the pure emotion was there. It's like, you've had so much baggage on you. It's kind of like, when you cross something off your bucket list that you've always wanted since you were a kid. That's what MJ was able to do. And he overcame the odds and the obstacles. And he let it out. He didn't try to hide it. He didn't try to be this polished guy for the media. It was pure, raw MJ. And that's the moment that will forever be in the history books because he let us in. And we saw all the hurt, all the pain, and all that he went through in that moment.
Yeah, and it was so special because that was his first one without his father being there. And it happened to be Father's Day,
so think about that.
Yeah.
Yes. It's crazy. You couldn't create that any better. You lost your dad. You get the win on Father's Day, and you had come back. All that you went through, and you wanted to do it for him, and you got to do it for him. Like no greater tribute. And you could just see like MJ probably felt his dad, was looking down on him, and he was saying, "We did it. We did it together."
My thing was, what was Randy Brown thinking? I swear he was trying to steal that ball from him. That's the only thing that popped in my mind. He was trying to take that ball. I'm like, Randy, what are you doing, man? Come on, man.
That's hilarious.
That part stood out.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, so we got.
It was good though. Overall, like 7 and 8 were very, very good, and I feel like now the 9 and 10. I mean, the 10 has to be good. It's the finale and the close, but I mean the way they set everything up and the clips that they use, and then of course the meme of Jordan laughing at Gary Payton will forever be hilarious because that was like the hardest laugh you could do. Like that, I mean, literally, he was like, eyebrow raised. Like Jordan just was like, come on, like come on. So I mean, it was all around. It was good. Jordan, the whole team, like they did this. This documentary is good.
It was definitely entertaining. So through the first 8 episodes, what's big picture? What's your big picture outlook of all this?
That's a good question. I feel like my big picture takeaway is that we get to kind of see more into the making of Jordan and the making of the Chicago Bulls dynasty. Like, I feel like, again, being a 90s kid and not having, being born in this era and not really getting to witness this through the lens I'm witnessing it now, you really see why MJ is the GOAT. And you see players backing that up, and you see how he forever changed the game. And so many players today, pull from the game in the house that MJ built. And I think, too, just makes you have respect more for his teammates. Like, I feel like people who really didn't get to know Scottie that see him now, and we know the drama that happened with Scottie, and I guess his strange wife or whatever's going on with that situation. He was. And then I think even seeing his background, though, to get to where he was, if you didn't know that, like Scottie really is one that overcame the odds, to get to the NBA. But then not everybody can be a good Robin. Scottie was a good Robin. It's hard to be Robin. Everybody wants to be Batman, but it's very hard to be Robin. And then, Scottie, missing out on those 1.8 seconds. Like, I mean, just everything has been just so pure, so raw. And I think for Steve Kerr, too, like, again, when you look at his teammates, it's just been good to see a younger Steve Kerr and what Steve Kerr was like. Like, I feel like when Steve Kerr, if the NBA does come back, I feel like when he walks back into that locker room, if his players didn't know, now they know. I feel like he's going to have a new respect and a new just aura, when he goes back to being the coach. But it's been good so far.
Yeah, take away Scottie Pippen. Scottie Pippen, man. Scottie Pippen had too much emotion.
Don't laugh at Scottie.
I'm not laughing. I'm just like Scottie Pippen he let his emotions get the best of him too many times. The 1.8 seconds, he didn't want to go in because he was inbounding the ball. But then you look at it, he made the shot. Tony Kukoc made the shot. And
right. What you want, like, because if you had that pressure and you didn't make the shot, you know what I mean? Like, and you should be happy for your teammate. Again, you want to win, but that's like if me and you on a team. I want to see you win. Of course, I want to win, but if you win for us, then I'm still going to be happy. And again, it's part of being a team.
And honestly, Scottie has never been known as a quick catch and shoot guy, so I could understand why they would have him inbound the pass because he's a great passer. Like, he's a great all-around player, and also he's a great passer. So I don't get why he would have been mad at that. Then you saw the other clip of him throwing the
He wanted the glory.
He did,
wanted the glory. Like, think about it. It's like if you're the little brother for a long time and your big brother's just been so great. He's perfect. He gets straight A's. He's a star on every sport. That's what MJ was, right? And so when Scotty finally had this chance and, you know, your parents like, you know, we want to see you, you know, performing a talent show. We're coming. And then all of a sudden your parents like, oh, we can't make it. You know, we got to work. That's what it felt like for Scotty. And so I think at that moment, he was young. He was immature. But I think he knows he was wrong, obviously.
No, he doesn't. Because he said if he do it over again.
He said that. Look, he said that, but come on. I feel like Scotty said that to be the tough guy. I feel like he said that to be the tough guy. But no one can tell me if you really got Scotty one-on-one, he really feels that way. I'm not buying it.
He probably would have said that. He probably would stick by that story.
I'm not buying it.
All he had to do was say he'd change it. He'd do it differently. But, I mean, no. Then we got the other clip of him throwing the chair on the court. It's like, yo, Scotty, man, control your emotions.
Crazy. But you know what? To be fair, I feel like everybody in this doc has said, like, they wouldn't change what they did. No. I feel like it's like they're saying that now in the doc. But I just feel like, again, if you got them one-on-one and you really, like, got them over some drinks and you really had a heart-to-heart, like, they're not saying that thing.
If you got them with some drinks, we'd probably get some more unfiltered things that would make it great.
Some more epic, epic content.
So that
which we wouldn't be mad at.
I wouldn't be mad at all. All right. So episodes, also the BJ Armstrong one, when he hit the like game clinching shot to win the opening game of their playoff series and screamed at the Bulls bench and then we go with psychotic Jordan again with the sociopath. I think they didn't win a game after. They didn't win another game after that. And he said BJ should have known better. Yeah. Yep.
Oh, BJ. I'm glad we got to see more of BJ in the last episode.
Yeah, there were a few casualties in this. LaBradford Smith, who scored 37 points, and then Mike makes up a story that the guy put his arms around him and said, "Good game, Mike."
And it was over.
You have to be a special kind of crazy just to make something like that up to get yourself riled up.
That's not true though, because I can't even because it has to happen. Because if I make it up in my mind, I know I made it up. So I can't feel the same way as it. But, I guess that's why MJ was MJ. And that's why we're not MJ, because we don't function like that.
Well, he put 36 on him in the first half. The next time they played each other. Oh, man, that was something else. But, yeah, Michael Jordan is he's different.
The one and only
he's
MJ.
very different. And before we go, I can't let you go without talking about your Baltimore Ravens and your guy Earl Thomas.
Ooh. You had to go there. Look, what Earl was doing was what Earl was doing. We just hope he stays with the team because the team is coming together and we want to make it to Tampa. All right. So Earl, I hope you learned your lesson. Be faithful to your wife, and you won't be an Earl Thomas.
He need to be more about staying alive because it sounds.
Well, look, now he knows. He knows his wife is about that life. So I believe TMZ will not get Earl in any more situations.
My thing is, you should have known your wife was about that life already. You married her.
Look, and they were high school. It was like they were high school sweethearts too. Like they really know each other. But Earl, I'm gonna need you to make better decisions. You and your brother both need a timeout. All right, and we need to get back to business. This is why football needs to come back because players right now they got too much time on their hands. They don't know what to do.
Listen, we are reaching the time. This is usually, May, June is usually the time of NFL offseason headlines. That's usually the time.
Yeah.
And
so
Earl Thomas has already given us our first one. I'm sure there'll be many more coming within the next couple weeks, but that one had to be.
Earl, I'm not going to be ready. Honestly, as a reporter, I'm not going to be ready because the Earl one already just had me mind blown. But Earl, come on. And then the crazy thing I will say about Earl is if you get to know Earl and you even see him, he doesn't seem like that player. He has this persona that you would never associate that with Earl. So I feel like that's why when it came out and then he released that video, I was like, where's your PR team? Your PR team all like, we need to talk. We need to talk. But then especially for the Ravens organization to have something like that come out. And again, this is a Ravens organization that had the Ray Rice fiasco. And of course, this is not the same. But I know the Ravens were like, oh, man, like we can't do this again. We can't go back to that. Because, of course, when it first came out, you didn't know, like, what had actually happened. But his wife now is forever a meme, forever a celeb. And I think Earl will be faithful from now on.
I'm sure when we are.
He's going to be faithful.
Yeah, I'm sure when many folks first heard
but no violence either way.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure folks thought he was the one that assaulted her. I'm sure that was everyone's. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that was
when
everyone's
the news first came out. Yeah, like that's what you think. Unfortunately, but it's because unfortunately, like that's what we unfortunately see in the news so much. But for Earl, like he has a lot to come back from. I think it was Mark Ingram, his teammate on the Ravens, of course, Ravens running back, that was like, no, we're not respecting your privacy. Like we need to know. And Mark Ingram, that's his personality. But I could just imagine, like, I can imagine what the Ravens group chat or like text messages were like when that all came out.
Just imagine what training camp's gonna be like. Woo!
Well, that's gonna be fun.
Yeah, get it together, Earl Thomas. Come on, man. You do better.
We're praying. We're praying for you.
You and your brother. All right, Kelsey, let them know where they can find you, websites, social media pages, all that.
Sure. Well, everyone can check me out at KelseyNicoleNelson.com on social, Twitter, Instagram, The Real K Nelson, and Facebook, Kelsey Nicole Nelson. And then be sure to check out my podcast, Listen In with K&N. It's on iTunes, Google Play, and Spotify. And also check out the live stream. That's available on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Lots of great stuff coming up. And come talk sports with me.
There you go. That's Kelsey Nelson. I'm not going to talk about her Terrapins losing a chance of getting.
Look.
We'll save that. We'll talk about. We'll talk college basketball next time. We'll talk when it comes back.
Look, let me say something real quick though. If college basketball had resumed, no one can tell me my Maryland Terrapins men's team would not have gone far. Like this was our year. COVID happened, and man, it robbed us of a possible championship that we so needed back in College Park.
As you can see, the school spirit is still kicking in, so she's going on with that.
Fear the turtle.
There you go. Kelsey, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. You guys have been watching Plus One, and we'll see you guys when we see you guys. Have a great day.